Hello, good morning, good afternoon, welcome. I'm very pleased to be joined by Charley Rattan. Charley, as most of you will know, is a long-time faculty member and one of the founding members of our faculty on World Hydrogen Leaders and has been delivering a lot of our online training, originally across the wind space, but now increasingly around some of the derivatives and the e-fuels. And I'll be presenting a course coming up February 6th, 7th around ammonia and its place within the energy transition. So good to see you again, Charley. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you, Nadeem. I was just looking; it's 11 years that we've been working together now in
Wow.
various guises. So time flies, as they say, when one's
I,
enjoying themselves. So
so
a long-term association, as you say.
yeah, that's a long time. So as I mentioned, yeah, you've obviously been tracking the space. You obviously advise a number of your own clients around the energy transition, specifically around hydrogen and obviously green fuels. So what are your observations lately coming off the back of COP and as we enter 2024, and also maybe as you sort of move into describing what you're going to be delivering in early February on the platform as well.
Yeah, so a great question. A lot in there. One thing I noticed at World Hydrogen Congress in Rotterdam, and that was amplified at COP, was the increasing involvement of Middle Eastern interests, ADNOC, Masdar, and others. And I was pleasantly surprised at COP. There's always a bit of horse trading, isn't there? And the narrative goes up and it goes down, and expectations are raised and dampened. But I think we've got to be reasonably pleased, certainly coming from a green background at Progress, significant investment, projects in construction and underway. And then a whole heap of tectonics around it, aren't there? Yeah, it's hydrogen, yes. The image behind your back, World Hydrogen Leaders, absolutely. But it's now getting real. Some of the early, we might call hype, might be transmuted into let's get projects delivered, and then let's see what comes in. And that's to answer your question. We've got derivatives now. We've got e-fuels. We've got mysterious phrases. P2X, a very strange phrase to British ears, but it is part of the bigger picture. So we're now synthesizing, I think, and bringing together disparate strands of the energy sector, ranging from oil and gas to refining to carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, things that we thought were foul and needed removing. Could there be a role for them as a feedstock? And if so, how do we move from the academic to deliver it, to say, well, look, yeah, this is very interesting white paper, but that's not the same as a project with health and safety, with project metrics, KPIs, milestones, and a return
Yeah.
for investors. So a really interesting space to be in. We'll see. We'll try and tease out which might have legs, and which might be academic byways, which might work but might be niche and therefore unlikely to go global. It might just be for certain countries at certain times, but not
Mm.
really what we're talking about here, which is a global energy transition. That's what COP's all about.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, certainly lot of aspects, obviously not least making a return in the economics. You also mentioned safety and looking at the course that you're going to be delivering, which is obviously around ammonia. And obviously safety comes up a lot as soon as you mention ammonia. And what are your thoughts around
Yeah,
safety aspects for
it's a valid
ammonia?
concern, isn't it? Anybody looking at ammonia, it's caustic, it's toxic. I did a webinar with I think 1,881 Germans where I discussed the Beirut explosion, and I said, "Well, look, it's ammonia." They said, "Oh, no, 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 that's not ammonia. It's not nothing to do with us." I said, "Well, look, if my mother was reading that press article or seeing on television and ammonia is mentioned, she doesn't care whether it's a form of ammonia.
Yeah.
She's scared, and she wouldn't want an ammonia plant near her, and she wouldn't be the only one. So it's what people's perceptions of it. We always have the H, the Hindenburg, don't we, and the hydrogen world. I used to start every course with it now, and so it is. It needs treating with respect. So that is absolutely right. I think it's banned from parts of the River Rhine and Danube. Amsterdam chose to go with hydrogen, I think, rather than ammonia because of the safety concerns. Having said that, for those of us that do come from an oil and gas background, we are used to dealing with it. We deal with it at refineries. 140 or 180 ports already deal with ammonia. So if you treat it with respect, handle it properly, keep people away from it, it can be a potentially useful conduit. So ammonia needs, and if you're not prepared to do that, stay away from it. Absolutely. Having said that, agricultural interest, they've dealt with it a long time. The ports that I've mentioned, big oil and gas, have dealt with it a long time, and we have in the UK. So if you're prepared to treat it with respect, then it offers some really interesting uplifts. It can move a lot of hydrogen, 4 times as much hydrogen as hydrogen in its own right. I teach on it, but I still find it troublesome to explain how something else mixing with it can move 4 times as much of the product you want to get to market as the product in its own right. But that is the case. And I do understand the commercials of that. So if you want to move large amounts of hydrogen, you would at least consider ammonia to do it safely. And that's one of the reasons why it's so interesting, along with the overheads involved in it. You need the cryogenic side, the cooling side is a lot less onerous. You can cool hydrogen, and liquid hydrogen is out there. Aviation's looking at it, but it's minus 253 degrees. It's a lot of work, a lot of overhead, a lot of cost. And if you can reduce that to a little more than what a domestic freezer can produce, then you're hacking away at the cost side of things, and you might have an economic route. Notwithstanding the concerns around the causticity, if you like, and the toxicity, it's not for everywhere. But if you've got terminals at each end, preferably away from people, and you can handle it safely, then there's certainly a place. We know that because projects are happening. Big projects are already in construction.
Yeah. I think someone said to me recently, there's a big difference between city ports and industrial ports, and there are simple legislations around blast areas and residential places. So certainly, you can see ammonia playing an increasing role in the industrial ports and industrial product, but less so as soon as you come to more sort of consumer facing or city.
I think one lesson learned from the Beirut incident, which I would say is a part of the wider ammonia economy, it's got ammonia in the title, is you must be transparent and you don't leave it in the sunlight baking on a vessel that nobody knows what. I've never seen a more opaque health and safety case, and I've looked at a lot over the years, than that one. I suspect there are political reasons for that, there are embarrassment reasons for that, but it did devastate a large part of a major city. And I would agree with all the things that you say, that it's not for everywhere, you must caveat it. And but there are plenty of terminals, aren't there, away from sources of population, some in the UK, and some in the UK are indeed looking at it, designing around it, and designing health and safety as the very top driver of the project. Some happening in the north of England for sure.
And in terms of other usage, as we were talking before, and you mentioned combustion seems to be coming back. Previously we'd seen fuel cells. What are your thoughts around the sort of usage cases and
it seems
potentially
almost
combustion engines?
Seems almost a retrogressive step, doesn't it? That, hold on, you've got these fuel cells, they can convert chemicals to electricity very efficiently, clean. Some of it is zero emissions at the exhaust. Perfect. So why would you then go back to something that might have emissions? Well, you might then look at the realities, political realities. You might also look at commercial realities and say, well, hold on, we've got thousands of people trained in combustion engines. We know how they work. We know how to fix them. The infrastructure is in place. And although fuel cells have a place, it's not just the whole place. I think the challenge there would be to drill away at the emissions and put obviously some capturing. And then the problem that you mentioned as well, God forbid, people are now looking at ammonia cars in certain parts of the world. And given what I've just said about Beirut, would you really feel comfortable, even I, that loves innovation, would I feel comfortable with an ammonia vehicle sat out on the drive? And I suspect the answer is no. So, but notwithstanding, that's not to say that that innovation might find a place if it's controlled in certain environments, if it's away from people. And I'd be the last person to want to stifle innovation. Obviously, it has to be safe, and safety comes at a cost and comes with a whole hierarchy of controls. But yes, I suppose why would we soften the net zero agenda and go back to combustion? I suspect it's economics. I suspect it's incumbents. You might find, well, the oil and gas people might be very keen on ammonia. They already deal with it, don't they? The grey ammonia could become blue, and then blue could become green. So you can see a clear transition route. It might not be overnight, but it would still be a route to net zero, and in that case, in line with the COP agenda, which is about transition. It's not about an overnight change. So I can see that as a driver. And I suppose now let's see what happens with the ammonia engines. Shipping is perhaps more of a front runner than the domestic car market for it. There are ammonia interest in the shipping sector, long distance freighters, controlled environments at either end, terminals, perhaps away from population sources, and big projects, including the Middle East to the UK. Let's see how it works. People become familiar with it. People address any issues with it. People handle it safely. And then if that's the case, then you might find a more wide dispersion of the technologies. People say, yes, it's not as scary as perhaps we thought.
Yeah, excellent. Well, lots to discuss, lots happening. We look forward to your course and learning more from and you sharing your insight. As I mentioned, I think it's February the 6th and 7th. Ammonia, hydrogen, and the energy transitions is the next time you're on the channel, as it were, in terms of world hydrogen leaders. So many thanks, Charlie. Take care and stay safe.
Thank you.
Cheers. Bye-bye.